Yeah, happy Saturday. Have some more stories for you out of the great state of Texas. Want to get everybody a chance to get in here. I don't know if you'd be surprised that Fort Worth and Arlington both made the top 10 safest big cities in America. Want to talk about that? A human skull was found in Houston. Houston never fails to give me content. What else do we have? Dallas PD response times are trash and people are pissed. What's going on in Dallas? Why are they having these slow response times, taking 4 hours to get to a call? Let's get into it. All right, North Texas cities rank among safest in the United States. A new study ranks Fort Worth as the third safest and Arlington as the seventh safest city in the U.S. The rankings were based on per capita data for metrics including crime, fatal accidents, and drug overdose deaths. Fort Worth's population has recently surpassed 1 million, making it the 11th largest city in the U.S. Something to hear that it's one of the safest big cities in America. All right, let's get into the article here. Safest North Texas cities. The findings: 50 of the largest cities in the U.S. are ranked on a per capita basis for the following metrics: violent crime, property crime, fatal car accidents, drug overdose deaths, and excessive drinking. How safe is Fort Worth? Fort Worth came in at number 3 on the list of the safest cities, just below LA and above Omaha, Nebraska. Fort Worth was found to have a low level of crime relative to the number of residents and was on the low end of average for the top 10 sampling for drug overdose deaths per capita. The complete metrics show violent crime per capita is 0.0137, violent crimes reported 13,352, property crime per capita 0.0349, property crimes reported 34,136, traffic deaths per 100,000 people 10.8, drug overdose deaths per 100,000 people 17.9, percentages of adults reporting excessive drinking 18.02%, median monthly household income housing costs $1,489, median household income $76,000 a year. Not bad. And Arlington ranks number 7, just below Vegas and above El Paso. I'm curious about Vegas. I don't know about Vegas being one of the safest big cities. Maybe it is based on the data that they have, but I don't know. I see a lot of crazy things happening out of Vegas. So Arlington is one of the 3, the third biggest city here in the Metroplex after Dallas and Fort Worth. But it's in the top 10 in America. And that's actually pretty surprising to me. And then El Paso made the list. Los Angeles made the list as well. I mean, that's a shock, maybe because nobody's reporting crimes out there. I don't know how true that is, but a lot of crimes do go unreported. All right, digging deeper. Fort Worth's latest census has put them at over 1 million residents, widening the gap recently secured over Austin as the 4th largest city in Texas. The population growth also secures Fort Worth as the 11th spot in the nation. Yeah, that's pretty impressive that Fort Worth is now past 1 million residents. That's crazy. It was when I moved to Texas when I was a bit younger, it was about 500,000, maybe 600,000, somewhere between 500,000 and 700,000. So it's grown a lot in the past 20 years. I mean, Fort Worth does have its problems, but you don't hear as much going on in Fort Worth as you do Dallas. I hate driving in Dallas. The traffic is crazy. It's out there. I always feel like I'm going to get into a car accident or something. Really congested. And I just feel like Fort Worth is a lot smoother to drive through. That's just my personal opinion and my personal experience. And I feel safer in Fort Worth than I do Dallas. So speaking of crime, let's go to, actually, we're going to talk about truck drivers first. Texas cracks down on truck drivers who can't speak English.
Texas is cracking down on truck drivers who cannot speak English.
And the governor says this is all about safety, but critics worry it could hurt the trucking industry. Fox 4's Vanya Castillo breaks down what the state is doing.
Yeah, truck drivers in Texas, Governor Greg Abbott is making it very clear that you must be able to speak English to drive on Texas roads. No exceptions.
Federal transportation officials in Washington have already warned states that don't follow the rules, they could lose millions in funding. Governor Greg Abbott has directed DPS to run zero-tolerance language checks on all commercial drivers in Texas. The Texas Trucking Association is backing the move, saying English proficiency is essential for safety. The TXTA president and CEO, John D'Esparza, releasing a statement saying in part, when drivers cannot read and understand road signs, weather alerts, or critical digital instructions near bridges, overpasses, or construction zones, it puts every motorist at risk. But this isn't just a Texas issue. This is all part of a bigger crackdown. The U.S. Department of Transportation rolled out its enforcement plan earlier this summer after a fatal crash in Florida where 3 people were killed. The driver in that case was accused of not being able to read or speak English and therefore was unable to understand road signs.
Now, when we did that, there was a lot of press that complained to us that we were being unfair to people, that we were being mean to people. And what we said was, no, this is a safety issue. Making sure drivers of very heavy 80,000-pound rigs can speak the language is truly a critical safety issue.
The Department of Transportation says California, Washington, and New Mexico are already on notice. They were given 30 days to comply with federal rules or risk losing tens of millions in highway safety funds.
We do not want to penalize the states. We want the states to comply and to enforce the English language proficiency requirement, which is directly related not only to the safety of the citizens of their states, but the citizens of all of the states around all of the United States.
Since late June, according to Texas DPS, it has cited nearly 450 drivers for failing English requirements, most of them licensed in Mexico. Abbott says from now on, DPS won't issue intrastate licenses to anyone who can't speak English. As of right now, it's not clear how that will be tested.
Now, supporters say it's about safety, but critics argue that it'll make it even more difficult for an industry that's already hurting.
I mean, I don't see why that's that's a problem. I don't see why that will be controversial. I get it, it's going to take time. We have to see how that plays out, but I do believe that you should speak the language here if you want to drive a truck. I mean, you have to read the signs. You have to be able to speak the language, because you're going to have idiots like the one in Florida who can't pass a basic test and kill people. Just common sense, in my opinion. So these laws are already on the books. Texas just wants to enforce them. Yeah, crazy stuff. All right, so skeletal remains found in Houston. A woman is carrying a skull. Let's get to that right now.
4:30, possible human remains found outside of a home in North Houston. And the Houston Police Department says they're now trying to identify who that person was.
ABC 13 reporter Sarah Alshake is live on McIntosh Street now, where police say they found the remains. Sarah, though, you talked with the woman who says she and her sister found a skull sitting outside their home.
Yeah, she says it was sitting right there on top of those mattresses that they were planning to throw out in front of their home. Now, after police arrived, HPD says they eventually found more remains elsewhere.
My sister was the one who noticed it.
After coming home from getting breakfast on a Saturday morning,
right here.
Connie Guerrero says she and her sister found something disturbing sitting outside their North Houston home.
When we got out of the car, we got closer, and sure enough, it was a skull. So we called 911, and they came out here. And when they came out, they closed off the street, the perimeter.
When officers arrived, the Houston Police Department says they found the skull sitting on items put out for trash.
They said it had to be buried for a while. They said because when they cleaned the skull off, They said there was a lot of dirt inside the cracks of the skull.
According to police, witnesses described a homeless woman walking with it and leaving it there. HPD says officers found her and she took them to a location where there were additional remains. Houston police say an anthropologist from the Harris County Medical Examiner's Office responded and collected what is believed to be human remains. Now officials are trying to figure out who they belong to.
This happened right here. It's just too close to home.
Guerrero ultimately left with many questions, wondering what happened to this person.
I just feel bad for the person that is, and whoever's missing out there and reported missing. I want the closure to know that, at least some family member will know that whoever they found, we found their missing person that they're looking for.
Oh my gosh.
Now, the medical examiner's office is currently working to identify that cause of death as well as the identity of that person. Anyone with information is asked to contact HPD.
Wild stuff. Wild stuff. Imagine waking up and seeing a skull sitting on your trash. And Houston's got some major problems. Enough about Houston. Let's go to Dallas. Dallas residents call for police improvements in wake of response time complaints. I've heard about this. I've heard that the response time is absolutely trash in Dallas.
Well, after getting complaints about long response times for Dallas police, we've learned that on average, DPD is missing its goal by a long shot.
This week, people called on the city council to do more to improve public safety and obviously response times too. Fox 4's Lori Brown live in Dallas with more. Lori.
According to the Dallas Police Department's dashboard, its average response time for a priority 2 call is 94 minutes, well above its goal time of 12 minutes. And this week, fired up Dallas residents told city council members the city needs to get more police officers on the streets.
Residents are concerned about slow police response times and the rise in crime. We want you to fix this.
15 speakers at Dallas City Hall Wednesday urged city council members to find more room in the budget to make its police pay more competitive.
The city with the most crime to fight, the city that spends the most training officers, the city that should be leading the region is ranked 12th in pay. Smaller suburbs like Richardson and Allen, with a fraction of the crime, pay more.
This debate comes as Fox 4 News has reported on 2 significantly delayed responses to urgent 911 calls.
Do you have to die to get a quick police response? That's what was going through my mind.
In our first report, it took more than an hour for police to respond to a hit and run August 23rd that seriously injured a motorcyclist, and another hour after that for officers to get to the scene.
The fire department stayed. We kept waiting. And then the fire department said they could no longer wait for DPD. They were saying they guess they're short staffed. They didn't know what was going on.
Then on Thursday, we reported a similar issue that happened just this week. It took 4 hours for Dallas police to respond to Plano PD after suspects they were chasing crashed in Dallas.
We gathered where they told us to. We exchanged information and we waited and we waited and we waited. And I finally told the Plano policeman they're not coming. Mm. And they said, well, but we requested them. We think they'll come for us. And I said, okay. And we waited.
In both cases, Dallas PD told us the crashes were level 2 priority calls. The goal response time, 12 minutes.
I know they're shorthanded, but there's something broken in Dallas.
Big time.
And I think that we've got to figure out a way that we can get those response times whittled way down.
More officers might help, but Dallas has long faced competition from other cities offering better pay. The Dallas city manager's proposed base pay of more than $81,000 is a significant increase from the nearly $72,000 starting salary now. Damian Levesque is the executive director of Dallas Hero, an organization that spearheaded a voter referendum to require 50% of the city's new revenue go in part toward hiring 900 more officers.
Passage of Prop U was a referendum on public safety. Residents demanded cops' salaries be in the top 5 in the region. So why aren't you taking them seriously?
Dallas police response times have been a concern for a while. According to the city's dashboard, the average wait time for a priority 2 call has not been under an hour since 2021. Then the average wait was 37 minutes. Stephen.
Wow.
Heather.
All right, Laura.
Crazy. So 37 minutes back then, now it's an hour. That's 4 years is a long time for them to have these these long delays. I mean, that's crazy. Below an hour in 2021, that was the last time. Unbelievable. And the pay is a problem. I mean, $71,000, $72,000 for Dallas is not bad. But when you have the largest population in the metro area, and then, second largest in the state after Houston, yeah, I think you do need to pay your officers more if possible. But then if you look at Plano police officers, the starting salary for Plano recruit is $83,000. So yeah, of course, people are going to go where when it's safer, officers have less to deal with in Plano, and you get paid more. To me, it just makes sense. And I mean, if I had to choose, am I going to choose Frisco, Plano, or am I going to choose Dallas? I mean, yeah, I think it's pretty clear which I don't look. I know some people want the action, but when you're down 900 officers or whatever it is, yeah, I'm going to go towards a smaller police department. Let's take a look at Carrollton PD. Starting pay is $77,000, more than Dallas is $72,000. Then they top out at $109,000 a year. That is actually really good. And then Fort Worth, the second biggest city in the Metroplex. Now, like I said a few minutes ago, 1 million people in the city of Fort Worth. But the starting pay for upon graduation, you get $78,000 annually in Fort Worth, or $6,500 per month. So you're getting paid more in Fort Worth, you get paid more in Plano, and you get paid more in Carrollton and even Richardson. You can go to a lot of other places. South Lake, you can get paid a lot more than you get paid more than you get do in Dallas, and for a lot less work, a lot less, stress, I should say, with all the crime they have there in Dallas. So I want to get into my final story here. Last week this live stream was a lot more excitement. This week has slowed down a bit, so I do have some stories for you still. So Texas GOP sues the state to close primaries. This is interesting right here. The Republican Party of Texas has taken its long-running fight over crossover voting to federal court, filing suit against the state of Texas and Secretary of State Jay Nelson to demand the right to restrict participation in GOP primaries to registered Republicans only. Filed Thursday in the Northern District of Texas, the lawsuit argues that Texas' open primary system, in which Democrats and independents may choose a Republican ballot, violates the GOP's First Amendment right of association. Party leaders say the current system allows non-Republicans to select GOP nominees, undermining both parties' platform and its grassroots members. Today, the Republican Party has sought judicial relief to close our primary elections. Chairman Abraham George said in a statement Thursday evening, in Texas, Republicans, only Republicans, should select Republican nominees. The lawsuit builds on Rule 46, adopted by Republican delegates at their convention in 2024 and strengthened this year, which requires voters to be registered Republicans before casting ballots in GOP primaries. The rule came in response to years of frustration with Democrat interference in Republican contests. A change to the rule adopted earlier this year places the responsibility of maintaining party registration with Secretary of State. In other states with closed primaries like Florida and New York, voters are required to declare their party affiliation when registering to vote. If implemented similarly in Texas, this deadline would fall about a month before the primary election. The party's complaint cites examples of close races allegedly swayed by crossover voters, including former House Speaker Dade Phelan's narrow 2024 primary runoff victory over challenger David Covey, who was a far better candidate than Dade Phelan, by the way, way more conservative, and would have helped implement the agenda that Republicans actually want here in the state. Phelan won by just 389 votes. A margin of the lawsuit suggests may have been provided by Democrats preferring the more moderate incumbent. Republicans point to a ballot proposition in 2024 More than 72% of GOP primary voters supported restricting participation to Republicans only. Despite that directive, efforts made by lawmakers this year to enact closed primaries through bills filed by State Rep. Michael Schofield, State Rep. Briscoe Kane, and Senator Mayes Middleton failed to pass. Without legislative action, Secretary of State Jay Nelson has indicated she will only certify candidates chosen through the current open system. That prompted Thursday's lawsuit, which asked the court to declare open primaries in Texas laws unconstitutional as applied to the Republican Party and block their enforcement. The party argues that without judicial relief, it will be forced to run open primaries in 2026 and beyond, effectively allowing Democrats to continue shaping GOP nominations. This lawsuit is about protecting Republicans' right to choose their own standard barriers. Only Republicans should pick Republican nominees. That's how we defend our platform, our values, and our future. If successful, the case could mark the most significant shift in Texas primary election law in decades, setting the stage for closed Republican primaries as soon as 2026. Yeah, that's interesting. Very interesting right there. And the argument is that there are two sides. One side saying that, well, what about independents? What about people who are Democrats who are wanting to actually become Republicans, the want to actually vote for a Republican candidate? How is that going to impact them? They can't make any last minute choices. Independent voters as well. So that's one side of the argument. And I get what they're saying about allowing anybody to come and vote and possibly swaying elections. I think it's very likely that this happened in smaller races like we saw in with the one I just talked about with Dade Phelan winning by a small number of votes. You might have had a small number of people in that district, Democrats going to vote for him because he's more moderate. A lot of people consider him a rhino versus the more conservative candidate. And that could be a problem. I mean, now, would Allen West have won the primary? No. Back in 2022, whenever he's running for governor, he would not have won. But Greg Abbott is a more moderate candidate. He's also very popular in the state. But I think it would impact the smaller races more so than these bigger races, like governorships. And if you have these local races or the smaller races like for the Texas House, Texas Senate, yeah, I think you maybe could see some impact there of Democrat interference. Yeah, people could just move in the state and you could go, Democrats go vote in Republican primaries. Now, how do we combat that? I think maybe that just means we have to campaign harder and make our case more. I don't know. Because there are studies showing that open primaries are good. We'll get into that. I'll read the conclusion because it was a pretty long study here. The conclusion is that it has been proposed that more open and nonpartisan primaries can help increase voter turnout and facilitate a more representative electorate when parties are nominating candidates for general election. The evidence presented supports those claims across a variety of demographic groups and other characteristics, including partisanship, although not uniformly. Notably, more open and nonpartisan primaries see higher participation from unaffiliated voters, and the primary electorate's composition is more representative in terms of partisanship. In other words, more open and nonpartisan primaries do not make it just easier for unaffiliated voters to participate. Under these circumstances, voters actually do participate at a higher rate and in a way better reflects the general electorate. In some ways, changing the primary type appears to be even more effective at achieving a more representative electorate than reforms like election day registration. These analyses reveals changes in state primary rules in both directions, both expanding access to unaffiliated voters with a political party and closing primaries to participation from unaffiliated voters. As policymakers and voters across the country consider changing primary rules to increase turnout, especially among unaffiliated voters, and encourage more representative primary electorate, they can be confident that more open and nonpartisan parties primaries will help achieve those goals. Interesting. Yeah, so I don't know. It's a slippery slope. I think there are two sides to this coin here about having open primaries. But look, Florida has it, New York has it. So there are complaints from the GOP. I understand why, because like I said, you don't want these left-wing lunatics or people influencing what goes on in our state, what goes on in our party. So yeah, I don't know. That's up for debate. We'll see how that goes, but let me know what you think. And I will see you next time I have to head out. Have to cut the stream short. But like and subscribe. I'll see you next time. Thank you. Take care.